Hey there, micro friends. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Micro. As always, I am so happy that you're here with me. And if this is the first time listening to Let's Talk Micro, well, thank you for choosing it as one of your podcasts. Okay, so on today's episode, I had the pleasure of talking to Dr. Filipa Godoy-Vitorino, and she joined the podcast to talk about a microbiome center that's been established in Puerto Rico. And this is the first one of its kind. And in the episode, she shares her vision for the center. She talks about the challenges of doing research in Puerto Rico. And, she talks about the center bringing scientists in so they can do their research. And, definitely this puts Puerto Rico on the map. She also talks about collaborations and some future plans, like a probiotic. So this is such a great episode. So let's go ahead and listen to it. Okay, so those of you that are listeners, and maybe you remember a while back, I did an episode about the microbiome, and then recently I was, researching some topics for the podcast, and I came across this one about a microbiome center uh, being established in Puerto Rico. As I said before, I am Puerto Rican, so this episode, it's special. I get to chat with someone that's working there, and it is great. So today we're going to be talking about a microbiome center that is in Puerto Rico, along with another article that I'll put on the show notes. But with me, I have Dr. Filipa Godoy. Dr. Godoy, welcome to Let's Talk Micro.
Thank you so much for having me, Luis. It's a big pleasure to share with you all the things that we're doing in Puerto Rico regarding the microbiome. Thank you for inviting me.
Definitely a pleasure having you. So thank you for accepting my invitation. Okay, so typically, in the podcast, we start with like a quick introduction about, what the guest does. So maybe let's go ahead and start with that. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in microbiome research?
Sure. So I'm originally from Portugal. I developed as a biologist at the University of Porto, which is it's in the north part of Portugal, very famous for the port wine. During that time, it was the early 2000s. I got the chance to apply for a European Union grant to study any research topic of my interest. In that time was cell and molecular biology within a specialization in plants. So I wanted to work with cyanobacteria. And I chose to do the Erasmus. This is this grant's called Erasmus. So I chose to go to Spain to learn because I wanted to learn Spanish. In Portugal at that time, we didn't used to learn Spanish. So I went to the Canary Islands and I worked with cyanobacteria, their effects against parasites in tomato plants. During that time, I met my future husband, who was Puerto Rican. So I applied to the graduate school here in Puerto Rico to study microbial ecology, which is what I wanted to do. Also in plants, but then I had an amazing mentor who told me I should follow another lead. That's Maria Gloria Dominguez, a very big name in human microbiome uh, globally. And Maria Gloria was also starting her lab at the time, 2003. So I started my PhD here in Rio Piedras, in the Rio Piedras campus in San Juan. And I studied a bird called the hoatzin, which is a flying cow. It's a very ancient bird from about 65 million years ago. It lives only in the northern parts of South America. And because it eats leaves, so it has a strictly frugivorous diet, we wanted to look at the bacteria that were developing in the gut of this bird. At the time, there was no microbiome. Remember, this is 2003, 2004. The microbiome field started more or less 2006, 2007, the first papers. So we were still behind. I was, cultivating bacteria and transforming them with amplicons. We were sequencing whole isolates, the white transformed cells, and we were sequencing full length genes, 1500 base pairs. So all that work is very manual. It's a very high burden of manual work. And that was the cover for applied environmental microbiology. So while I was a grad student, the field was starting. So I got the chance to learn from the pioneers of microbiome research at NYU, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, the Washington University in St. Louis. So I learned from the top microbiome researchers, and that shaped my choices going forward. So I did my postdoc at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab with Phil Jugenholz and Susanne Trinch. on the metagenomics of these bird guts with an NSF grant for my postdoc, for my 3-year postdoc. So after the postdoc, I came back to Puerto Rico and I started my lab. So that's basically the beginnings of my uh, path in research. I started at the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico, which is a private university here in San Juan. And during that period of time, it was about 6 years I was there. So I started my research lab, and I also created a master in sciences in molecular microbiology, which still runs today, especially for professionals that are already working, for example, in pharmaceutical companies, and they want to train in the latest microbiology topics. And then after Hurricane Maria, which is something that perhaps you already touched in one of your podcasts, which basically destroyed our ecosystem. And scientifically speaking, it destroyed our scientific ecosystem as well, 2017. So I lost all my freezers, all my collections, and I had to start from scratch. And then I moved to the medical school here in San Juan, where I am talking now. That's more or less a summary of my career path.
That is great, and thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think I've been following, like a page on Instagram, and I have been following for a while, and I was like, as years pass, and I'm like, one day I'll find something that kind of lines up with the podcast, and I saw this, and it's a great opportunity. So let me reach out, and then, that's one thing that you mentioned about Hurricane Maria, and of course, everyone knows, and I wasn't there, but I remember, the effects with my family, and I hadn't even thought about, for like science and research, those things, right? So you lost your samples, and wow, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what inspired the creation of a microbiome center in Puerto Rico?
So there are very few people doing this in the island. So I was one of the few people starting after Maria Gloria left Puerto Rico. I kind of filled in her shoes doing microbiome research. And she's still a collaborator of mine. She's in Rutgers. I always talk about her because she's not only a role model as a scientist, but as a person. And we're still friends. So when Maria Gloria left, there was a person who applied for her position. So there was like one person in Rio Piedras and me. So there are very few people doing research, and I collaborate with folks, even if they're doing stuff in soil or in water or different projects. I always help them with developing their biosafety protocols and thinking strategically about how to store your samples so that you can do microbiome research. And in most instances, I was collaborating with a lot of people, and it's basically my indirect costs from my projects, which is it takes a toll on your own research. So one of the things that we needed to do was to create a center that could be funded to do this, to basically support other researchers to do microbiome research questions. And with that in mind, we submitted an NIH grant to the NIGMS, the National Institute of General and Medical Sciences, and they have funding to start these projects, to start centers of biomedical excellence, to develop a specific topic in a region that is underrepresented. So in Puerto Rico, there was no one who had a core facility for microbiome research. We have Puerto Rico IMBRE, which is a big center also that supports predominantly undergraduate institutions. And it also stems here from the School of Medicine. And Dr. Medina, who is the PI, he kindly invited me to be a part of the data science core. And in that science core, it's basically me, and I had a technician who helped analyze data for other people's projects. And we were very productive, but it was at the dispense of my own time. And that's very limiting. So now having a center could basically respond to this need. Folks don't have time to write papers. If they have some research data, they don't have time to write, or they have a lot of sequences, but they don't have any expertise to analyze the data. They don't know the standards for microbiome data analysis. They don't know about metadata curation. So all these things, we really needed to have a center to centralize all these things. So with that in mind, we developed the center with that idea. So it's a fairly recent award. So we got the NOAA in May. The summer came in with all the paperwork. So we basically started in August, September to do things that you can actually see, like remodeling of labs, recruitment of staff, identifying specific data sets that we could polish and write papers on. So it's something we're still getting, the hang of it, but it's very promising and we're all very excited. And it's also a big flag for Puerto Rico and for the region, because we also collaborate with folks in South America and Europe, in the US. So it kind of puts us in the map for the Microbiome Research Center.
That is excellent. And before I continue asking my question, definitely congratulations on such a huge accomplishment. And
Thank you
like you
very
said,
much.
bring that attention to Puerto Rico, and that's amazing. So thank you. So what type of vision do you have? How do you envision this center?
So right away, reached out, even for letters of support in the grant. I have letters of support from everywhere in the world, including the Microbiome Centers of Excellence, the Microbiota Vault, which is an effort. I don't know if you heard about it. It's an international effort to store microbiomes from diverse peoples, so that people have redundancy in their collections and they're stored ethically, and people can sequence their data. So I have letters of support from all these organizations at the global level. So the vision was precisely that, to have a representation in the Caribbean to study microbiomes, not only clinical. It comes from the project is in the School of Medicine, but it actually supports mostly research projects that are in the school, but the idea is to expand to Puerto Rico and beyond. So we also like to have the opportunity to support folks analyzing data in in the US or in Europe, that we can bring collaborations in. What makes this vision unique is to have. So we didn't buy sequencers, for example. There's a lot of sequencers everywhere in San Juan, in Mayagüez, in the Cancer Center, in Rio Piedras. Everybody has an Illumina sequencer. So that was not the idea. The idea was to have the expertise to analyze data, to give training in data analysis, in statistical analysis, in bioinformatics, in Python, in Chime, in Cheetah, in all these major pipelines, so that people can know what they're doing and do it well. That's what we want. We want to be able to train folks and to help them publish more and be more productive in this field, and obviously expand new research in fields that the PIs didn't originally want to develop a microbiome project. So the three first research project leads that we are supporting in the center, they're people who are not originally microbiologists in their formation. So one is an anatomist. He works with a blind cavefish, blind Mexican cavefish. So he wants to look at the microbial association with behavior, like aggressive behaviors in this fish. So it's like a gut brain axis type of thing, and it's a model system that it does not use a human cell. The other project is on epilepsy. So the person is testing a phospholipid who helps improve and react quicker to an epileptic insult in mice. So that's a really cool project as well, which is very translatable. And the third project is from my department, is an immunologist, and she's looking at head and neck cancer using mice models and looking at how antibiotics interfere with the biofilm, and how they can improve and remodel the oral microbiome to improve the outcomes of the cancer treatments and all that. And she also has a cohort of clinical samples from patients here in San Juan. So these are three very different projects from researchers who had never done microbiome research before, but their projects are really can expand to integrate this new vision. And that's what we want. We want high risk, high reward ideas. We want to do new things, help people bring in their ideas, and see how we can help them develop new projects. So the idea is also to help them write grants and train their students and get more publications out of it. That's the vision for the center.
That's excellent. And by now you have mentioned this and you have talked about right publication, you're doing research, more training. So when it comes to this, what else can you say about how does the center, maybe how do you envision it contributing to training the next generation of scientists in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. Right now, we have what we didn't have before. We had monthly seminars only on microbiome research. We bring experts from outside Puerto Rico to bring their research projects, their expertise, possible collaborations. So there was no one focused only on microbiome, no offerings of this type currently. So now we have these monthly seminars, and it's a great opportunity to bring scientists over and to have them, talk to with other fellow scientists, with clinicians, and with students. We didn't even have opportunities for training in microbiome. So now we're going to have a series of training, of workshops that can run for a week, where folks can bring their data and they can make their visualizations and their statistical analysis and get out of the workshop with their figures for the paper. So that's what we want. So that's the novel thing. I mean, you can go to a 1 week course in the US and you can learn, the basics, but you can come here and we can, help you get the publication ready. So that's basically what we bring new to the table.
It's amazing. Excellent. Okay, and as we continue throughout the episode, and I'm gonna be asking some questions. There's the publication that from yours that it was published in May of 2025, and for the listeners, I'll put the link on the show notes so you can look at it in more detail. And there were some things there as I was reading, like underrepresentation. So I wanted to ask you about that. When it comes to the Caribbean, being underrepresented in the global microbiome studies, what are the implications of that for science, medicine, and even for public health policy?
That's a very important question. So most microbiome research come from the northern part of the world, the northern hemisphere, U.S., Europe, and China. Most papers come from those three regions. The fact that we don't have enough microbiome diversity profiles from people in the global south really makes it harder for us to get probiotics, cancer treatments, and things that are more appropriate to folks who have, like Puerto Ricans, ancestry from African origin, from European origin, from Amerindian origin. So that mix of that genetic admixture is very important and makes Puerto Ricans and their typical lifestyles and diets really different from an American or a Chinese. So in terms of the microbiome, it's obvious that we cannot, recommend the same, probiotics and fecal matter transplants or whatever done to the way they are done with an Asian person. So it has to be more appropriate to the genetic and lifestyle level of these populations and being underrepresented. So it limits this developing of these treatments and all that. So it creates a big gap, and also for public health policies, because we cannot take, for example, solutions that are done in terms of the environment, tropical environments, and even what happens here with all the storms and the dust from the Sahara desert and all the implications that it has. I mean, Puerto Rico has the highest asthma rates in the planet, even in kids. Nobody's looking at the nasal microbiome. There are a few studies done with a collaborator of mine. She moved to China, and she was interested in babies that were in the womb during Hurricane Maria, and how were their nasal microbiomes now after the mothers being exposed to the hurricane. So that's a very cool paper that you should look into. But there's very few data with Puerto Rican representation or with Caribbean people's representation. So that's very important, and this center will help close this gap a little bit. So I mentioned the three research project leads, but on this is the first year only, but after year 2, and this is a 5-year grant renewable in 2 more cycles, so it can go up to 15 years more. And we will open the possibility for applications for pilot grants and feasibility projects, which we can give money to researchers so they develop their own research projects, and we can also give their money to use in the facility to analyze their data. So we're going to have a lot of opportunities. If you're listening, if you're in Puerto Rico or in the US, you want to integrate microbiome research in your projects, please reach out to us.
Yeah, definitely. So and always, with this type of, if you're reaching out and you're listening, and and I can put an email address on the show notes, and sometimes, if you want to reach out to me, and I'll forward your information as well. So feel free. There are several ways that you can do this. So, like anything, there's always challenges, right? When we're trying to do things, and when it comes to this center, what challenges do you face
I have to be honest, developing the idea and writing the grant and all that, that was not a challenge at all. It was very, I was so excited and all the ideas were there. And I have a very amazing team with, I'm from the microbiology department, but I have the administrative core director is Maria Sosa. She's from the neurobiology department. And she's really excited with the project. She's not a microbiologist, but she understands the vision, and she really, works with me side by side. And I'm really thankful to her and to the team. But most our challenges come from the institution, which is surprising, because all the regulations and all the requests and all the bureaucratic stuff, it's what impedes us to, I mean, we want to race, and we want to do this quick, and we want to serve people as fast as we can, but we are limited about, if we're doing a renovation, the architect has to come and the engineer, and you cannot put this wall down, you cannot do this here, you should do this way. So there's a bunch of regulations in terms of the institution, which are the major challenges. But we are overcoming them, and we have the right people by us, and we have the support of the administration, which is good news. But it takes time, and yeah, it slows us down a little bit.
Okay, and and with challenges, and so the listeners have a visual or a picture of some of the challenges, without a center, right? When it comes to the researchers, what barriers, they run into. Maybe you can talk about that, like maybe delays, whether it's limited access to equipment
Yeah,
or
yeah.
even missed
Well,
opportunities.
right. So yeah, so we live in an island, so everything comes by boat, and if you buy a kit, it takes some months. And if you think about it, so it really is but it's across Puerto Rico. It's not just us; it's everyone. Even so our biggest flag is the diversity of the peoples, and the importance of the data banks and the biorepositories. That's all very unique and amazing. But getting this ready and getting the data out, and the DNAs and the shipments and all that, it's a barrier. But another thing that people would struggle if we didn't have the center is the English as a language, a universal language for science. There are no trainings in Spanish. So one of the things that we are also bringing to the table is the fact that we can offer a workshop in Chime or in R or in any other database, and we can do it in Spanish because Puerto Ricans are bilingual, so we can do it in English and Spanish, and that opens a lot of doors, and especially in Latin America, people are thankful that we are getting this on the way. In fact, I was recently in Mexico for the ISME Latin America meeting. You know what ISME is? International Society for Microbial Ecology. So I'm an ambassador for ISME in Puerto Rico, and we have ambassadors in the whole world. It's an international society, and every 2 years we do a meeting in Latin America. And the ambassadors in Latin America, we are very close, friends and colleagues. So we have this meeting in different countries. It started in Chile, then Colombia during the pandemic, and now we did it in Mexico. And I presented the center in Mexico, and folks were like, "Yeah, I want to go. I want to go to Puerto Rico, and I want to learn, how to code in Spanish because it's very hard and there's very few resources online." So that's another thing that we're going to bring to the table, and it's another barrier that we're going to, cross, which is offer capacity building in also in Spanish, which is very
Now that you mentioned that, then it's something that when you talk about the English and Spanish, and this is something, and I told the audiences before, but for example, like I did all my studies in here in the U.S. and sometimes even when I'm doing episodes in Spanish, and you using the terms, it's like your brain it's in English, and I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I speak Spanish all the time, but when it comes to those things, it's a little challenging. Yeah. So I know in your article you mentioned some issues such as brain drain, as far as you mentioned that. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, and some strategies that are key to attracting and retaining specific talent.
yeah. So the center uh, aims to create new jobs for scientists. So we're gonna have project coordinators, program coordinators, faculty, technicians, bioinformaticians. So there, it's a way to to make sure that folks do what they like to do, what they enjoy doing, and give them an opportunity to have a job with a competitive salary, because this is NIH level salaries. But we are also working with the institution to be able to use some of these indirect costs and be able to create new opportunities for faculty. So we can bring new faculty in to the School of Medicine so they can teach, come and be a faculty, an assistant professor, and have their job, their lab, and their field of research developed. So that's one way of getting this brain drain bleeding and putting a stop to it. Not putting a stop to it, I wouldn't say, because it's hard and it's more, the salaries are better outside Puerto Rico. So it's, young people, I know that my postdocs and technicians, and they don't want to be postdocs or technicians for the rest of their lives. So I know they're going to go away at some point. But we have to be able to create opportunities within Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is getting old. There's a lot of, most young people are leaving the island. So we have to make sure that we create new jobs that create opportunities that are exciting. The Puerto Rico Science Trust already has in place several things that helps avoid this brain drain, which include what they call Ley 60, Law 60, which is an exemption in income tax if you're doing independent research, if you are a PI on a grant, or you have a company that does research. So you can apply for that exemption. From part of your salary can be exempt from income taxes, and that's a way though to bring young people over. The same with medical doctors. Medical doctors have a very special fiscal law for them, so they pay very little income tax in Puerto Rico. So that's a way of bringing back talent. And the center basically wants to chip in a little bit by creating these jobs in microbiome, in microbial ecology, and making sure that we, in the next couple of years, we have new faculty positions in the field of microbiome here in the School of Medicine.
Okay, thank you for that. But before we just for context and to explain a little more to the listeners, what do you when you say brain drain? Can you maybe talk about that? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean when it comes to this?
When I meant stopping the brain drain is basically, Puerto Rico is one of the few Hispanic institutions that exports the most masters and bachelors and PhDs to the US. And there's a science paper on that, which shows that University of Puerto Rico is the main exporter of PhDs to the US. So with that tradition in mind, we have to make sure they're very good, because here, I remember in my country, in Portugal, when I was a undergrad student, I used to go to wash dishes for the lab just to hear the science, and the PI didn't know my name. I was there, but he didn't know my name. Here, anyone can knock my door and can talk to me anytime, and I'm the chair of the department. I don't, my door is always open. So in Puerto Rico, we have the best of these two worlds. We have very good scientists, and we have the humanity to be closer and to go down to any level and make sure that kids feel safe and welcomed to be a part of the conversation. And as we do it, we export all these talented, bright scientists that go to the US. So that's the brain drain. So we want to make sure that these people that are, bachelors, masters, PhDs, postdocs, that they have the opportunities, if they wish to stay in Puerto Rico, that they have the opportunities to continue living here and making sure they can do their jobs and continue having fun. Because I always say this to my students. I mean, we are having fun. We work all the time. We work weekends and nights, and we don't have any holidays and summer vacations because we enjoy doing this. Research is every time. It's all the time, and it's like playing. I tell them, go play, but we have to give them opportunity. We have to give them salaries that they can live of this. They cannot have two jobs, so that they can pay their make ends meet, right? So we have to give them opportunities that they can play, they can enjoy what they're doing, and they can have adequate lifestyles.
Yeah, indeed, and yeah, and salaries, that's a whole other thing, and something I mentioned here, even for like the medical technologists or medical lab scientists, that's a huge ongoing topic, and we were kind of touching a little bit, discussing a little bit before we started recording, but that's even here in the U.S. It's there's still some issues with the pay being considered low, and compared to Puerto Rico, it's even lower there. So that's a whole different challenge. Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you go to Europe, it's even lower than in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Yeah, even faculty. I mean, we complain all the time because our salaries are the same as in the 80s in Puerto Rico compared to the US. But if you compare it with a European colleague, they their salaries is like a technician. My lab technician earns the same as an associate professor in Spain or in Portugal. So everything has their drawbacks and their limitations. I mean, everywhere. Yeah. So we
Oh,
have to
thank.
contextualize and be thankful for the moment and for what we have, and make sure that we make the best out of what we have.
Yeah, well said. And definitely, I love the passion that you have for what you do. So that's you can definitely see it. So right, we see all the time. We see partnerships, we see collaborations. There's a huge power on that when people align for a goal. And when it comes to this, what role do international collaborations play in advancing microbiome science in the Caribbean?
That's an amazing question, and that's a good opportunity to mention so many partners that we have at the global level that gives us visibility. First thing is visibility. Second thing is, for example, I mean, I can mention a few of these collaborators. So the Microbiota Vault, what I mentioned to you, which is a humanitarian effort, it has as the board of the Vault is not only scientists but also a Nobel Prize in economy. Folks that the developer of the seed vault in Svalbard. So it's the idea of storing fecal matter and bacteria from that can save the planet because we are living in extinctions, right? You guys know that we have co-evolved with microbes since more than 500 million years ago. We acquire our microbiomes from our mothers, but we are living in modern lifestyles with antibiotics, and we live in the homes, and we have air conditioning, and we use antimicrobial gels for the hands, and we take supplements, and we eat fast food. So all these are like fires in forests. So it's extinctions and extinctions and extinctions, and our own microbes that have developed with us, they disappear. So we are constantly in this biosis. That's why it's important to save for those people who are very diverse, who are very healthy and asymptomatic. We have to store their fecal matter. We have to store their microbes because one day they can be a source of microbes that have disappeared from Earth. So that's the idea of the vault. And the vault offers us the possibility of having redundancy from our collection. So, for example, I have the largest cohort of women microbiota in the Caribbean. So, all these collections of samples from fecal matter to saliva to swabs, we should have a redundant collection in Switzerland in a mountain because they have bought a space where they can. It's below ground and it's -50, so you don't need electricity or refrigerators because the temperature is already so low that you can store the materials there. So we have space that we can send our samples to their repositories, so we can make sure that if we have another Hurricane Maria, which destroys the electrical facilities in Puerto Rico, our collections won't be harmed. So that's a very big collaborator of ours, the Microbiota Vault. Then we have the Latin Biota, which is a Latin American effort also to sequence and to whole genomes and shotgun genomes from Latin America. We also have the Global Microbiome Conservancy, which is an effort from the University of Kiel in Germany. We plan to also collaborate and send simple samples to sequence and do meta-analysis and all that. We are part of the Microbiome Centers for Excellence, which is established at the University of California. And when we have our website ready, which we don't yet, we will share with them, and we will have this big database of centers and of services that we can collaborate and offer their services and our service together. At the personal level, as a researcher, I also have an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the University of Antwerp as part of a major study of, citizen science study looking at vaginal microbiomes. So I've been working with vaginal microbiomes for several years now. And right now we want to do self-collection. In this case, we are developing a project called Lola in honor of the two first medical doctors, Puerto Rican medical doctors from the 19th century. And these women are called Dolores. And because the two of them have Dolores in their name, we came up with the name Lola. So Lola is a citizen science project which aims to, sequence vaginal microbiomes of women across Puerto Rico from rural to more urbanized areas. And we want to look at lifestyle. What types of diets shape the human microbiome? And besides vaginal microbiota, we also want to look at skin. We want to look at nasal microbiomes and to look at fecal microbiomes. Um, so with that, the University of Antwerp has a project called ISALA, which is in honor of the first Belgian medical doctor. And ISALA is now extending to the whole globe, and we are a part of that effort. It's a consortium of centers for women's microbiome. So you see that we already are reaching out to folks everywhere, and we plan to have this, very complex net of collaborations and offer these collaborations to other folks who were not initially interested or were doing, just immune profiles or cytokines or whatever, and now they can use these collaborations of ours and our expertise to develop new projects.
Okay, wow. And definitely thank you for sharing that. And so if you have to say, with the microbiome research in Puerto Rico, and in the next 5 to 10 years, right? There's so much research going on. You have so many plants and things like that. So if you had to say, well, maybe think about the biggest opportunity for research, what would you say it is?
I can I have to immediately I have to think of my own research interests. So I would say within the next 5 to 10 years we will have these repositories so well characterized that we will be able to come up with new probiotics, for example. We can come up with probiotics, we can do interventions with fermented foods. For example, Puerto Ricans have a drink, it's called Mavi or Mobi. It's a fermented, it's like a kombucha, but made with wood from plants here in Puerto Rico. And my lab has sequenced the Mavi microbiome, and we have found 16 new types of lactobacillus or lactic acid bacteria. And we were not supposed to submit the paper because we wanted to see if we could, patent it. But then I decided not to patent it because it's a typical thing here. It should be free for people. So we are about to submit that paper. It's a very old paper, but we are finally going to publish it. And for example, that we can do new interventions. People ever more they have, inflammation, gut inflammation, and all these autoimmune diseases. They can benefit from fermented foods, and this is the magical fermented food in Puerto Rico, Mavi. So I think that in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of Mavi-like strategies to help Puerto Ricans improve their, inflammation and stuff. And we're going to have probiotics for sure.
You said 16 species of lactobacillus?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. I do remember the Moviga that, right, like you had to puncture the cap with, like a little holes, and I don't know if it like on the north side, but I'm from Maya West, which is on the west, and you used to see on the road people
On the
selling it.
road. Yeah.
I don't know if they
People
still do,
still
but
sell
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, they do.
And that's
There you go.
always, yeah, very kind. Is there anything else, about this that you will like the listeners to know or tell them something?
Well, we're still, I mean, as I told you in the beginning, we're still getting it running. So we are, the facility is not available yet. So I think that next year, 2026, we will have more things in place that folks can use. Even medical doctors can reach out for us to sequence microbiomes from their patients. And that's what we want to have. We want our facility to be independent. Once, if anything happens to federal funding, we want to be able to be, independent and be able to serve the community independently of our, funds. So once we have it in running, I will surely send you an email so you can add our webpage and all the services that we're going to offer available for your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. And in the future, if there's anything that you want to talk about, and by all means, feel free. This is, you can use this platform, and you can come back and we can talk some more. Um, yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank
yeah, of course. Okay, I like to ask this question. It's I get all sorts of answers, and it's like a fun thing, and right. So we all have this microorganism that we like for any reason. Whether we did a paper on it in school, it was a research project, maybe it's a visual thing, it's a mechanism. So we tend to have what we call our favorite microorganism, or maybe our least favorite. That's also a thing. So do you have a favorite microorganism?
you. Yeah, I have a favorite.
Which one's your favorite?
Lactobacillus. Well, not only for the fermented foods, but Lactobacillus crispatus specifically, because I studied the vaginal microbiome. And from all of the microbiome niches in the human body, the vagina is the least diverse because it's open. It's an open canal. So it has to have a very low pH to avoid infections from, for example, the anus, right? So what really protects the barrier of the vagina is the fermentation that the lactobacillus do of the glycogen that is in the epithelium. So that fermentation, it produces lactic acid, and that pH is very low, should be very low, right? So that's a chemical barrier against infection. And the most protective lactobacillus in the vagina, any type of vagina, even if it's Caucasians or black, because I'm saying this because women from different ethnicities have different types of groups of lactobacillus in their vaginas. Um, and typically in Hispanics, the most important lactobacillus is not very dominant. And that's who I like. It's called Lactobacillus crispatus, and crispatus is like the superhero of the vagina. And there are already one microbiome probiotic that was developed by Dr. Jacques Ravel. He's the first person, top leader in vaginal microbiome, and he developed a probiotic with crispatus. So that's what I intend to do as well. I want to develop a probiotic for Puerto Ricans made with their own crispatus uh, isolates. So that's something that we're doing, and it's my favorite bug for sure.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'll definitely. I'm looking forward to in the future hearing more updates and see when that happens, and yeah, definitely come back and we can talk about that some more. Well, Dr. Godoy, thank you so much for this. I appreciate you taking the time, and this has been such a great talk. And as I said before, such a great accomplishment. So once
Yes,
again,
enough.
congratulations, and thank you so much for taking the time to be in Let's Talk Micro.
Thank you so much. I hope to come back. Invite me. I will come back for sure.
Oh, I
Thank
will
you.
definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Have a good day.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I definitely enjoyed talking to Dr. Godoy. She is so passionate for her work, and you could really see it when I was doing the episode, so I always enjoy that so much. And I really look forward to having her on future episodes, so she can talk about her research and projects and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So, as usual, you can find Let's Talk Micro on any podcast platform. So, if you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Goodpods, you can find us there. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find Let's Talk Micro. You can also find us on socials on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky Social as Let's Talk Micro, on X as Let's Talk Micro 1, on LinkedIn as Luis Plaza. There's an email address which is letstalkmicro@outlook.com. And of course, there's the website, letstalkmicro.com, where you can find information like study resources, episode updates, and more. So I definitely invite you to subscribe to the podcast and the website, download episodes, and if the app allows you to do so, please go ahead and leave a review. Thank you so much for the support. If you want to support us in any way, you can do so via Venmo or via Buy Me a Coffee KOFI, and both links are available on the show notes. And of course, if you are looking to learn more about antibiotics, please check out www.learnantibiotics.com and the Learn Antibiotics book, available on Amazon. These resources include cheat sheets, practice tests, games, and more, and they are being used by thousands of people worldwide and may be helpful for you or your colleagues. And these are some great resources from Dr. Timothy Gauthier, a very passionate pharmacist. And the Let's Talk Micro podcast is supported by the American Society for Microbiology. To learn more about microbes, visit asm.org. Hey, and if you're attending ID Week, which is taking place in Atlanta, Georgia from October 19th through the 22nd, hey, I'll be there. So if you see me, you recognize me, stop me and say hello. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and connecting with you. And that, my dear audience, it's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about the microbiome and the Microbiome Research Center that's been established in Puerto Rico. As always, I enjoy sharing this information with you. And just like Filipa, that brings so much passion to what she does, please continue bringing passion to what you do. It's so important. You do such great work. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the downloads. I'm always very grateful. And if you get a chance, please check out the episodes of our partnership with Bioinformatics, which are Let's Talk the Evolution of AST and In the Bloodstream, Diagnosing Infections Faster. If you're attending ID Week, as I said, I'm looking forward to meeting you. So, as always, stay motivated, stay safe, and of course, continue talking micro. Until the next time. Bye.